Everybody, welcome to the Fandom Post Radio podcast. I am your engineer, Kate, and joining me this week is Kestrel.
Back on top.
Hey, and Cain.
Hello, hello.
And we are here to talk about anime, as usual, because that's what we do on this podcast. So, we have news. There are conventions. I believe. Hopefully we have news.
A little bit.
A little bit of news. I mean, I would really hope that we haven't reached a point where conventions are just like nothing. Kind of getting there.
Conventions are nothing?
No, I said I hope we don't get to the point where conventions don't have any industry announcements.
Because, yeah, I mean, I think.
It feels like there's only one or two that even do that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's Anime Expo and I don't know, ESA NYC. Like,
yeah,
Otakon gets one like once every 3 years, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Otakon gets Discotheque, which, to be fair, is the best panel for announcements.
That's true.
But in terms of the thing is, the industry has become so consolidated and so international. So now, it's just going to be Crunchyroll going up there and announcing stuff, and they're not announcing licenses because that they're going to get every license as soon as the anime is announced. They're announcing new anime productions now because they're on the production committees of all this shit. They're just Sony now. So, yeah, the only two pieces of news I have from Anime NYC are Crunchyroll announcing 2 new seasons of anime series.
And what would those be?
Well, I guess we can go in reverse order since we have that segue. So those 2 that I have down here are Great Pretender, which is interesting because you'll remember the first season was a Netflix exclusive.
Yeah.
So this is unusual, but I guess this happens more often than you think.
It's a lot in this industry.
Yeah. So we're getting that in 2024. It's called Great Pretender Razblyuto. I have no fucking idea. Anyway, it's I don't think they've announced much about it. In addition to the Crunchyroll simulcast, it will screen in theaters in North America. I don't know if it's just the first few episodes or what, but they did announce that.
That's an interesting business decision, I suppose. Was the first series or season, I guess, that successful? I really liked it. I don't know if enough people liked it that they'll see it in a movie theater. It wasn't like Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen popular or something like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting move, but I mean, I'll take it, I guess.
Weird.
If they're going to do that, I hope they at least have the common decency of not playing them as episodes.
I bet they will.
Ugh. Fine.
But
What's
I mean,
the
it's
other
possible. We've had so many of these. I guess half of them are just throw a bunch of episodes for the first day. So Frierenday and the Apothecary Diaries this season both had that. But earlier this year, Oshinoko had its first episode was just an hour and a half long, and they actually premiered that in movie theaters in Japan, which you might say makes it a film. But anyway, they could do something like that where the first episode is just feature length, and so they put that in the theater.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm not gonna lie, I'd probably go watch it, but I don't know if it might be one of those situations where I'm there, I'm getting the poster or whatever, and then I walk into the theater and there's one other person in the far back corner or something.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten a ton of anime movies in theaters in the past few years. A lot of them from Crunchyroll, and I went from being in the place where you got none of them to being in the place where you get everything that is in theaters anywhere. So I've been seeing a lot of anime movies in theaters, and a lot of them are not the big hits, and a lot of those do have empty theaters. So yeah, I imagine this will be very similar. I'm sure it'll be like a 1-2 day release kind of deal.
Yeah, like a classic Fathom events kind of thing.
Yeah. Anyway, that's cool. That was a fun show. It'll be cool to have more of that. And another thing about me being in LA now, I'll get to appreciate a lot of the landmarks, assuming it also takes place in LA. I need to rewatch the first season because I think there was a lot of stuff that I had no exposure to that would now be, just the stuff I see every day. So that would be cool to see.
That's true. You get that little local flair, so to speak. Kind of like I have a few friends who really played like the shit out of some of the GTA games, and apparently they're so close to the maps of the actual cities that he was like, I could get around New York when I went because of how much GTA I played.
That is exactly what happened when we first visited LA, and then when we moved to LA because GTA 5 is LA, and we were like, oh, we know where we are, we know where to go.
Yep,
it's that accurate.
Practically locals at that point.
Yeah, exactly. It's insane. Okay,
so what's the other series?
Yeah, the other one that they announced was getting a sequel. This one does make sense to come from them because it was one of the few series branded as a Crunchyroll original back when they put that on stuff that they were on the production committee for, and that is Tower of God is getting a second season in July 2024.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I like the first one. It ended on a pretty huge cliffhanger, and I think for a while it was in limbo of whether or not we were going to figure anything out, considering the ending of that first season kind of turned a crucial character relationship on its ear. So I'm glad we're getting another one. I thought it was an interesting concept with some pretty neat character designs and stuff. I don't think it did anything super out of the ordinary. This is a web comic, right? Or a web manga, whatever you would call that.
Webtoon, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited for that one too. So both are good for me at the very least.
Yeah, I think I certainly like Great Pretender a lot more than Tower of God.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I heard a lot of really great things about the source material for Tower of God before the anime came out. So I'm hoping that the adaptation wasn't an issue, and it's just that we haven't gotten to the interesting stuff yet. In which case, this is definitely good news.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't recall ever seeing anything about that either. Like, when people would talk about it on, like, the subreddit for anime and stuff, occasionally it was mainly just about how people thought some of the animation and art looked a little weird.
Yeah.
And how it, I guess, took a couple liberties with character design, but I never have too much of a problem with that, honestly, in an anime, because I realize sometimes you have to make those changes because you are animating a thing. Like, sometimes you just have to make some changes so it eases up on the ability to animate things, especially when you don't have an unlimited budget. So I didn't really care too much about that. But yeah, hopefully it's more of we're getting the real good stuff soon.
Yeah, I think it was hundreds of chapters by the time the first season was even announced, and that was 2020 at the latest. So yeah, I guess both of these series were 2020 series. But yeah, given that, and I think it's just been going ever since, I can't imagine another 12 episodes is going to get us that much farther, but if it starts to get into the good stuff, then that'll be nice.
Yeah, no, probably not. I would be most interested just to see the immediate aftermath of the finale. Now that you had mentioned that there's hundreds of chapters, yeah, I do agree that unless they do a Promised Neverland or whatever.
No.
We're not going to make a ton of progress, but yeah, I do want to know like basically what happened immediately after the season ended, considering how that went. So,
yep,
cool. It's not exactly news, but I did have a question, real quick. So, I saw the new Godzilla movie the other night. In IMAX, and they played in the IMAX theater the trailer for The Boy and the Heron. Is that coming to IMAX?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's got
news to me because I wasn't expecting it at all. Like, no one in the theater was either, but there were plenty of people in the theater who just didn't know a Miyazaki film was coming out, period, so they were more excited about just the concept. but I didn't realize we were getting an IMAX release of this thing. I figured we were getting a standard theatrical release.
Yeah, it's playing right now in New York and LA, and then the first regular IMAX showings should happen in, I think, most major cities in a few days. There's going to be a couple days of that, and then the regular release starts in a week, and that should include some IMAX showings and some standard. And that should be a while.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it looked great on the theater that we were at, huge and, colorful and amazing and stuff, and people were very excited. I was curious because I wouldn't put it past the particular theater that we were at just to put up any trailer on an IMAX screen, because that has happened before when I'd seen movies in IMAX, and it's just like, oh, that movie's not coming to IMAX. They just put up a trailer for it for the sake of an advertisement before the movie started. But that's cool. I'll have to see if it's gonna be in IMAX anywhere near, because I have a handful of theaters around me that have it in various quality levels, but I'll have to check that out then.
Yeah, I think when I saw it is still maybe the only time it's been shown in IMAX outside of Japan so far. Because that was like the North American IMAX premiere at the Chinese theater for Animation is Film. And yeah, definitely worth checking out in IMAX if you get the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot of I don't know, things about that movie that I think some people might not be expecting, but to expect a fucking gorgeous piece of art from this team, and seeing that in IMAX definitely gonna make that pop as much as possible.
Yeah. I've done very little research about the movie at all because I want to go into it as blind as possible. So I don't know much of anything. The only stuff I can basically just glean from the trailer, it definitely doesn't look as upbeat and cheerful as some of his other movies have. It seems a little bit darker and introspective.
Yeah.
But that's obviously not an incredibly scholarly observation, because you can just get that from the trailer alone, considering nobody smiles in the trailer once. But yeah, very excited for it. Cool. Yeah, I hope that it comes in IMAX.
I read the summary of that movie because I was like, what's this about? And then I read the whole plot breakdown because I'm like, fuck it, just give it to me. And it
Come on.
No, I did it. Can't take it back.
Boo.
I mean, I guess you could do the same thing if you just read the book it was based off of too, I suppose.
Well, that's not true, because it's not actually based on.
Oh, really?
No. Yeah. It's he put all his movies in a blender and then said, will it blend? And then hit go. And then whatever popped out the other side is the movie.
I mean, the Will It Blend videos were always great. So if anything, that just makes, that's a strong recommendation.
That is an interesting perspective from someone who has not seen the movie, but as someone who has, I can say that is not true at all.
I read the whole plot breakdown, and I'm all like, well, this element feels like this, and this element feels like that, and this stylistically looks like this, and
is definitely the least like any of his films he has ever made.
Sure, you say that, but
yes, because I've watched it.
I don't know, Kestrel. Everyone's heads still look pretty big.
Yeah. Anyway, check it out. Don't be Kate. Don't look into it ahead of time. It'll be good. It'll be interesting, anyway.
Yeah, it'll be an experience, is what it sounds like.
Yes, very much. Yeah.
Is that everything for news? We kind of derailed a little, but
no, we got a couple
more.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so we have this is from a few weeks back now, but it was officially announced that The Legend of Zelda will be getting a live-action film. It's going to be done by Sony, which is kind of weird because they are Nintendo's prime competitor.
Yeah, this is funny. That's funny. Whatever. It's we're making this movie with Sony. It's that's sure.
Yeah. Yeah. The guy directing it is Wes Paul. I looked up what he did when this was announced a few weeks ago, but now I've forgotten. Maze Runner, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Oh, that hasn't been out yet. Yeah, got it.
So kind of a generally untested director at this point. Interesting.
Yeah, if
I
people have
saw
seen
that a
the
little
Maze
bit.
Runner
But...
movies, he directed all of those, but
Oh, all of
that's
them. Oh.
literally all that he's released so far.
Yeah, I've never been super big into the like Zelda games or Zelda universe. Obviously, I know the general designs and how like Link and Zelda and Ganon/Ganondorf have sort of evolved over time. So I'll be interested to see sort of where they go with the designs of each like live action character. And just in general, that I think that's from someone who doesn't play the games, that's what interests me the most because that's always hard to do, especially considering they're all like elves and shit and always have perfectly smooth anime skins. So
I think how they look will be fine because they look different in every game. So they have a lot of liberty to just kind of make it however they want. The thing that I'm interested in is kind of the story and characterization because, I mean, for one thing, Link doesn't talk.
yeah,
Like,
I mean, it could be the actor's easiest job ever because
I doubt they're going to keep that.
He just grunts occasionally.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
I don't think they're going to keep that, but it's also like what makes Zelda great is not the story, it's the gameplay. So, having an adaptation of Zelda does not necessarily mean any quality in one direction or the other. They just kind of, I think, got to come up with something that works in a film narrative and doesn't feel like a total betrayal of the characters and, the mythos. And yeah, hopefully the people behind it are passionate and talented.
Yeah. These things always, and I agree with your general concern you've levied against most anime-based live-action properties, is that it's such a hard thing to achieve in a fine line of making them look good and then just making them look like cosplayers.
Yeah.
And like that can kind of be very immersion-breaking when watching a movie like this, when you're just like, ooh, that person looks like it's, fucking Party City Link or whatever. Like, so, yeah.
Live action Legend of Zelda movie.
Yeah, we'll see.
It was called Legend.
What's that?
I said they've already made a live action Legend of Zelda movie, and it was called Legend. I mean, think about it.
With Tom Cruise, is it?
Yeah.
It is? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but he was like an elf in that. There was an evil, I mean, it was just like, untested elvish youth goes up against Satan kind of situation,
It's Tim Curry's Satan, right? That was Tim Curry, wasn't it, that played the evil guy?
Oh, I can't remember. I haven't seen that movie in a hot minute.
I think it was.
You're saying Tom Cruise is going to be a Link, though, right?
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. Cool. And they're going to digitally de-age him.
Yep.
They don't need to.
They're going to digitally de-age him down to Toon Link.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
They're just going to cell shade him, and that'll be about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who they cast, if they stunt cast or find some new people who are actually appropriate for the role. I remember some post last year, some like joke about Tom Holland playing everyone, and so they made like an AI poster where Tom Holland played every character in The Legend of Zelda. So we'll see, but yeah, could certainly be your usual Hollywood 20-somethings who look like teenagers.
Like any of the kids from Stranger Things.
Yeah, well, those are Hollywood 20-somethings who look like, I don't know, 10-year-olds.
Yeah. Perfect. You have to digitally age them. We have to go in the opposite direction.
Yeah. Okay, my last piece of news here, also about Crunchyroll, getting back to them. They announced that their manga service will be discontinued. Anyone remember that they had a manga service?
Only when I read this news item. Well, like I remembered that most of the stuff that used to be on their manga service was owned by Kodansha.
Yeah.
So guess what disappeared when Kodansha suddenly had its own digital service?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I think I've definitely read stuff on there over the years. I was reading like the simulpub of Space Brothers and Grand Blue for quite a few years. But yeah, both of those got quietly taken down with no warning. Both of them Kodansha properties, obviously. And prior to that, like back in the day, they had a Silent Voice and Orange before they had physical releases. So I read
They
those on
had
there.
Vinland Saga at one point, didn't they?
I don't remember them having Vinland Saga. I think I would have definitely read that on there if it was there first. Those are the only four I remember reading. All still Kodansha, but yeah, they never paid much attention to the service at all, and clearly, between that and all of the changes they're making and losing licenses and everything, it was not a priority at all. So, not surprised to see this happen. But yeah, very unceremonious as everything with this service has been.
Yeah, I remember. I think I had browsed the service once or twice, considering at least at the time, if you paid for Crunchyroll, you just got the manga service as a part of it, and it felt like such a eclectic collection and not in a complimentary fashion. It always was like, well, we have 2 volumes of this, and then we have the first chapter of this thing, and then like the chapters 7 through 9 of this other thing. Like, it felt very hackneyed how their library was put together and completely inconsistent. So I never actually read anything because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this or anything of that nature. That was very early on, so maybe it did get a little better eventually, especially as you said, Kestrel, they had simulpubs and stuff. But like, I guess their library, like their non-simultaneous things, always felt like just like throwing a bunch of spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was mostly just like, hey, we got this partnership with Kodansha. Let's see what we can get, and just throw it on there with little effort. Attack on Titan, I guess, was the big one, right? They did simulpub that for a while, but I was sticking to the anime, so that wasn't on my radar.
Yeah, felt like, hey, it would be great if everybody's doing this. Let's do this too, with nobody actually cared. Like nobody at the company actually cared to make it anything. No advertising, no, anything.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's thousands of people who have it and didn't even know. So
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Cool.
That's all I got for news.
It's a big hustle and bustle in the news category. I don't have anything bonus to add on this time around. So I think we can just kickstart right into talking about various anime and stuff. I actually want to begin the conversation with a question for you, Kestrel, and it would have been to every other person, but you're the only other one that I think watches most anything. How do you feel at this point, after watching anime for such a long time, about the flashback before a character's death trope? Does that do anything for you anymore?
I mean, I think it can. Yeah.
Because it does not for me.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk about what this is referring to, but yeah.
Well, I mean, we should. We can just spoiler it. I mean, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Some characters may be getting death flags in Jujutsu Kaisen. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been having this conversation recently, like last night after that episode aired, with a bunch of my friends who are not feeling Jujutsu Kaisen right now. And that was a big complaint, was, how kind of manipulative that is, to just give a flashback, and instead of it actually meaning anything for, character development, it's just to, throw this death flag and, kind of give you this last minute emotional investment that you probably should have had by that point anyway.
Right.
And I mean, it's possible that the character isn't dying, right? That's a possibility, but they certainly want you to think it is going to happen by the end of that episode. So yeah, I think in that regard, like the fact that we are having this conversation means that it feels like it's just there for last minute emotional manipulation.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think that episode could have been the same, and we could have not felt that way if the character had more build up throughout the series up to this point.
Which is a huge shame because the character in question is cool.
Yeah, totally.
It's cool and interesting in different in ways that they sort of play with and invert some typical shonen anime tropes. But then I'm gonna be honest, to get once we arrived at the point where the flashback started, I basically just started surfing my phone until the episode was almost over because I'm like, I know exactly what's going to happen at this point. I don't really care because I'm not going to be invested in the background of this character because I know exactly what's going to happen once it's done. So I'm not going to... I wasn't invested or convinced by it. And it's a shame. And it's like your friends... I have been very up and down on Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole for various reasons. Some being the show itself, others being, my various opinions about the production and also sort of decisions that, this isn't the show's fault, but like decisions that the source material makes if the show is like accurately adapting it.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a big one for me, was just the death flag flashback that felt like it was trying to be like, don't you care a lot about this character? It's so important, and it wasn't doing it.
Yeah, I think I don't know, a lot of my friends and the members of this podcast have definitely been pretty down on the big shonen hits this year, a lot more than I have been. So I guess I don't know, have a certain level of tolerance and have spent so many hundreds of episodes over so many decades watching like really mediocre shonen, that I don't know what we get in Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen, even if it's like, all right, I see what you're doing, it's not very clever. Even if it's a lot of that, I can still appreciate it for kind of utilizing the tropes in the best execution that I think the source material is giving them the opportunity to work with.
Okay, yeah, that's a very important caveat you threw in there because I was just about to be like, except for this one specific thing we're talking about, but yeah. If
Yeah,
that is
and
how
I
the
mean,
source material goes, unless you really break away from it, you're kind of, hamstrung by it.
I think that this episode and the thing that they're doing, I think it's one of those things where like I walk into a Marvel movie, there's a certain level of turn your brain off at the door to appreciate certain aspects, and shonen is just the Marvel movies of anime. And so I can have that critical part of my mind telling me on one of my shoulders like, wow, this is kind of a bullshit ass pull, or these powers don't actually make any sense, or this is a overused trope that you know what it's going for. But if I can, tune that down a little bit and take in the spectacle and what the series is going for, and what makes the shonen tropes effective in the first place, then I can be like, yeah, in the context that this is a character that exists in this world and people care about them, and it's going to have major repercussions if anything happens. I can see this being like an extremely emotional moment, and using this flashback to accentuate that is kind of the best way that they can bring you up to speed on caring about this character if they haven't been the focus of the plot up to this point. And that last point is definitely the biggest issue. Like I said, I think the episode is fine. It's the fact that the character has been so underserved up to this point that made it seem so kind of hackneyed at the last moment.
Yeah, I have a lot of conflicting opinions about the whole idea of turn your brain off when watching something, because I feel like it gives creators, or in some cases, the production companies and executives carte blanche to produce subpar content. Because if you just say turn your brain off, it means I don't have to write an engaging story with characters and emotional moments that mean something to you in an organic way. I've been told that brain turn off thing for a lot of Marvel movies, and that doesn't appeal to me, because it's like I want to be engaged by a story and have it be not logical, but like following its own rules, making me attached to the characters in a way that doesn't feel like I'm being spoon-fed stuff or just given death flags. So I don't know how much I agree with that whole like sentiment, but I do want to be clear that I do like Jujutsu Kaisen still, and I've liked it a lot this season. It has had some very strong points, especially when it comes to like the combat scenes, the animation in there. I think JJK in particular is one of the best shows of recent memory when it comes to close quarters combat. Like, it has the domain expansions and the powers and stuff, but when it's just like Itadori giving Mahito, a $2 haircut for 10 minutes, it's great. Or the episode with the Choso bathroom fight where they reference the raid is also so good. I think it's a similar criticism to Demon Slayer and stuff, in that those always look good. It's the foundational pieces around it that sometimes can flounder, and I don't know if that's a critique of the show specifically, or maybe of like the shonen genre, and having spent a lot of time watching it and getting to know the tropes and becoming maybe a little fatigued by them, especially since I don't personally have a whole lot of time to watch anime and stuff. So, I mean, the 5 shows I'm watching this season is probably the most I've ever watched in one season, to be frank. So maybe it just feels a little cheap and a little bit underwhelming because of that. I just wish... The other thing that makes Jujutsu Kaisen a little bit hard to watch is just all the stuff around, like, what Mappa is going through. And the feeling that I'm watching something that is the product of incredible crunch and abusive worker practices, which, to be fair, has been the case in anime for a long time, but I think Jujutsu Kaisen has been an incredibly huge outlier in that we have, as a public, testimony from employees from Mappa that are like, I wish I was dead. Like, it's... Sometimes it makes me feel weird watching it, to be honest. But you have to counterbalance that with the fact, like, well, what are you gonna do? You better than most people, Kestrel, know how like the production goes on an anime with the production companies and tight deadlines, and how the compensation structures work and who's incentivized to make this work happen. Like, it is an industry with a lot of issues. So that adds to it, which is not the show's fault. It's just sometimes, it makes it a little weird to watch, knowing that, especially, I can't remember which episode it was exactly, like numbers-wise, but maybe 3 episodes ago, where they first get sucked into that, like, the fish demons domain, and you can definitely see some, like, dropped frames and weird scaling on the characters, like Maki's boots turn into, like, Astro Boy boots for a little bit. Where you can see, the quality drops because they have to go through an intense amount of work. Is that something that your other folks really mention at all, or have any feelings towards that has colored their opinion on the show, or is that kind of more of a me thing?
No, I mean, it's definitely been like what the internet has been talking about, which is kind of insane because, like you said, there are these horrible, unsustainable, abusive practices going on to pump out this incredible quality every week. and anytime it is anything short of the most amazing piece of animation ever made, all the fans can do is jump down the throats of everyone killing themselves to make this for them, which is awful. And like, I think the criticism of the production quality is like, what are you fucking reaching for to complain about? Like, this is such an insane standard of quality. Like, the worst episode of JJK looks better than any episode of any shonen anime from 10 years ago. Like, it is a feature film that we get every week, basically. And it shouldn't be because it's killing these people. But God, the just marginal drops in quality that people lose their minds over is kind of ridiculous, I think. So I think that's even more of a pet peeve to me than like, people complaining about just the story in general, because that I get. Like, I think, like you said, it's conflicting because so much of what makes the anime great is the production quality and just the adaptation choices. But those are the very things that are, making these people's lives hell. So we're like rooting for the things that are draining the lifeblood from all of these humans in the studio. Which is unfortunate.
It does create a sort of moral dilemma a little bit, which I know other people have the opposite opinion of just like, I don't give a shit. I'm just gonna watch it because I like it. Whatever. Which I obviously don't agree with either. I know it's it's not the best opinion to have, but I wanted to share it with you, Kestrel, because I think it'd be one of those where it's like bittersweet. Because it's like, I'm glad you feel that way, but also, ugh. But I talked to my boss about it because he was a big Jujutsu Kaisen fan, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't get the people complaining about the quality either, because I think it's been very good overall as a whole." And he's not super in tune with like the industries, so he hasn't really noticed a whole lot of that stuff outside of like the blatantly obvious ones that get a lot of traction. But then he said, and at the end of the day, it's just anime. I don't think it's like incredible art. It's anime. And I'm like, oh fuck. Like, I'm glad that you're not complaining about the quality because it is really good. But he's like, it's just anime. I don't get what the big deal is. And I was like, ah, oh, fuck. Like, that hits me in the stomach.
And then you're like, no.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I mean, it's every. I mean, name an industry that's not having problems like this at the moment. Look, we had the best year in video games in like fucking 20 years. Guess what? All the studios have laid most of the industry off this year. Those games did amazing. They all reviewed amazing. They made a butt ton of money. Guess how many people have lost their jobs?
God, losing jobs would be the greatest fucking mercy for the people making this show.
It does kind of feel like that would be a sweet release sometimes.
If only they lost their job. Because instead, their options, as they see it, are work 24/7 until I die, or just die.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, we could go into that for a long time, even though I don't know your level of knowledge, but I know I'm obviously not well studied in it, but that's can just be a reflection on work culture problems in Japan, period, that have been around for a very, very long time. In a way. Yeah, so it's such a multifaceted problem that makes it difficult to solve. I
think the main kind of bullet points on how we've gotten to this point are definitely Japanese work culture, just all industries in Japan kind of having this exploitative nature to them, the passion of anime fans turning into anime creators, and the higher ups exploiting that, and knowing that there are so many others who would be just as happy to make these shows. So most of the staff are going to do whatever they have to do to make the greatest possible quality show that they can, because they're passionate about it and they want their name on it and they want to make the most amazing thing for everyone.
I mean,
And
they
even
can.
if they don't, then they're easily replaced, and they'll find another person who will. So,
Yep, they'll just churn and burn through the industry until there's nobody left in Japan.
yeah,
Which,
and
with
there
how the
always will
birth
be.
rates are going, I mean,
There's
Yeah,
also something that I read frequently too is there's also the ever increasing demand for anime,
yeah.
like
There's
in
more and more
general.
every season.
Yep.
Every season is the biggest season ever.
Yep.
There's so much more foreign money going into it, not going down to the people who actually make it. Nothing about that is changing. They just keep demanding more and more and more because anime keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and so it needs to be shinier and shinier and shinier. And the the trenches aren't getting any better staffed or better pay or better work conditions. So we end up in these situations where these people are just working themselves to death even more than they always have been. Um, so I know where we're at. And, there are studios that are better about that than others, and studios that are much worse. And MAPPA has come under a lot of fire lately. And, you see how much really top-notch quality stuff that they pump out all the time, and that's not sustainable for a studio their size. And we're seeing the repercussions of that in the workers. Um, and then on the other side, you have like KyoAni as kind of the gold standard of how to treat your employees and how to pace your productions, um, get everything ready ahead of time, pay people an hourly wage, let them make it at the pace that they need to make it to have the quality that it needs to have and have the work-life balance that they need to have, instead of paying them by the cut and encouraging them to just churn out more and more and more.
and in
And
the
then when it's
end,
ready, they release it.
yep, and in the end, they got rewarded as the way most kind and good people are.
Yeah.
I've heard, and you can, I don't know if you can confirm this, but another big thing that helps KyoAni as well is that they're a part of the production
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
boards, which normally studios are not a part of it necessarily. But like
Yeah.
KyoAni gets to have some say in that highest level production rather than just being at the mercy of, much more profit driven ventures.
Yeah. For sure. That goes into a few things like, one, they get to have more control, and two, they get more of the cut, so they're able to, pay their workers better and everything.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely, a lot of their productions are, their own IPs that they own. So they're able to maintain a lot more control. And, I think they're just more kind of forward thinking about, you know, do we have the staff for this production? Will it turn into a mess? And only picking up things that they know they are prepared to take on. Whereas, like I said, Mop was like, what? You'll give us everything now? Fuck, we'll take everything. We want to
Yep.
have the 5 biggest properties under our belt. Absolutely. We'll do them all at once. We'll make them all look amazing. And most of them are, primarily funded by other companies. And so even if MAPPA wanted to treat their workers better, they don't always have, the option to set deadlines themselves. And Chainsaw Man was the big outlier because MAPPA was the entire production committee for that. Um, I didn't hear any like stories about how the production was. I don't know that it was any better or worse in particular than some of these other productions. Um, but they are kind of starting to step into that uh, owner capacity occasionally. So we'll see if that changes anything.
Yeah, you would like to think it would a little, but we'll just have to wait for it to play out. Kind of moving back into just like Jujutsu Kaisen as a
Yeah.
whole.
I did want to jump back to some of the other things you brought up about that.
Yeah, the other, and I've mentioned this before too. I had another point, but we can't, if we're not going to spoiler stuff, I can't really talk about it. So I'll default to the other one. Is I just really need Itadori to win a fight for some reason, like win a fight on his own in a way, because he's been such a like totem of like suffering throughout the whole series, where if he wins a fight, there's always someone kind of helping him, but every time he fights on his own, he loses, and now we're starting to really see some, not really consequences of that, so to speak, but he will definitely as a character see them as consequences for that perceived lack of strength and ability. And as an audience member, I'm just really like, come on, you're like the main character, just do something for me here. So maybe if he can, beat the shit out of Mahito or something, it'll be nice. But if it's like we saw him lose against Choso, and now we're gonna see him lose against Mahito, and then he just is the series, Vegeta rather than it's Goku, then it's a little bit of a bummer. I give it points for being sort of creative in that way, and that he's not rising to the top of every occasion, but he's got to rise to the top sometime.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Plus, I have mixed feelings about Mahito because I really love him and his personality, but I also hate him and want to see him die.
Yeah. It's the same kind of dilemma as the, rooting for the great production quality, knowing the evil behind
it. Yeah, that's true. Because I'm like, oh, Mahito's fun and weird, and his power is interesting, but also, God, I just fucking hate him so much.
But yeah, I wanted to touch on some of the earlier stuff we were talking about like the, turn your brain off comment.
Mm-hmm.
I realize it's a loaded comment to say because it is a slippery slope. You could absolutely just use it to mean that, no quality is required in any storytelling capacity, and everything is forgiven. But, it's a very fine line. It's a balance you have to strike, and obviously it varies person to person. I totally get if people are going into everything with a completely critical eye, and that's totally valid. I think, shonen, like I said, I've been watching so many hundreds of shonen series for so many decades, and it's, I know how bad it can be and how great it can be, kind of using the same tropes, the same formula, the same story beats. So, there is and the same thing with Marvel movies, and superhero movies in general. Like, there are really great ones, there are really terrible ones. So, it's just kind of entering into that world, that the expectation of, this is a certain level removed from reality and from, your kind of prestige works. Like, you don't need to go into JJK the way you'd go into a Miyazaki movie. You don't need to go into, you know, whatever Spider-Man movie the same way you go into like Breaking Bad. There are different. It doesn't have to be different standards, but just a different expectation of kind of the world you're entering into and the mindset that you take going into it. And obviously there are the gold standards like Fullmetal Alchemist. Like, you can have all of your shonen tropes and all of the greatest aspects of real deep adult mature storytelling, and have them married so perfectly like that. But that happens once in a, I don't know, ever. So you can't expect that from every shonen anime. So generally, when you're going in, you see how well it can work with kind of the construct of the genre, the demographic, the usual tropes. And I think what Jujutsu Kaisen is doing with the tropes and the possible emotional manipulation is at least executed better than most shonen series that I've seen over the years. And so I think in that regard, because I enjoy these tropes and the style of storytelling and everything that goes with the whole action spectacle side of it, if I can go into that and understand on a certain intellectual level that it wasn't, the most brilliantly plotted out kind of character turn, then I can still take a step back and be like, let the emotion wash over me and appreciate the character writing we have gotten, and like I said, what it means for this kind of event to happen in the context of the storyline. And there are so many examples that are so poorly written that seeing what JJK does is still on the higher end of that, of being like, yeah, okay, I get what you're doing, and maybe you could have planned it better, but given that, I think it's pretty effective. And I know a lot of people disagree in this particular instance, and that's fine as well. But I think that's why this season of JJK and the earlier season of Demon Slayer this year, while definitely more flawed, have still generally worked for me and aren't like horribly disappointing me like, maybe My Hero Academia has over the course of its run.
Right, and that's a good point, and I think that moderation is important. What makes Jujutsu Kaisen a little, I think it makes disappointment is not correct, I guess, but it does have the capacity to make those incredibly emotionally effective character moments.
Mhm.
So, like when Sukuna retreats and disappears, and you get that sort of little mini montage of when Itadori kind of takes back over his body. I thought that was incredibly well done, because you see like the sum of the destruction that he wrought in what felt like maybe 3 minutes of real world time. So it really set like, this is what Sukuna is capable of. This is what Itadori has to deal with the fact that him being alive allows this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that it like zooms out and plays the theme, and you see him not only have a breakdown, like a mini breakdown, but then rise above it so quickly is like a testament to his resolve as a person. And I felt that was an emotional high point for the season for sure. It was like a low point and a high point at the same time. And then when you juxtapose it against what happened at the end of the last episode, it feels like, I know Itadori is the main character, but that there's clear imbalances of who gets development and who doesn't. But then sometimes it feels like it expects you to feel the same way about characters that don't get that development. But it has the capacity to do so. The mangaka or the producers of the show, depending on who's making these decisions as it goes through its adaptation, it just feels like it's a disservice to the character as much as it is to the audience, because it's like, you have the ability, it's just not used effectively all of the time, and that's kind of what makes it sting a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Because that like zoom out, and then you just see like that it's just this giant flattened black hole of nothingness, and then Sukuna's line, which is like, savor this, as he disappears, was awesome. Like, I watched that whole fucking thing like mesmerized, and then when we get what we get for what happened in the last episode, it feels shortchanged. It just does.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, these are definitely all things from the manga, like,
Yeah.
nothing about the adaptation. But yeah, definitely that was much more effective, and yeah, it's hard to know, like, none of this forgives the series, as an end product. It should, we should be talking about the things that didn't work out, no matter what the reason was. But yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of, be a fly on the wall in like editorial meetings and, see if what the motivation was for some of these decisions, if, they needed to like shoehorn in investment in certain characters at moments that it wasn't as earned or something like that. Because yeah, I think it definitely just comes down to how much focus is given on individual characters before you're supposed to feel all emotional about them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think definitely in the grand scheme, it wasn't the most effective moment of pathos that the series has pulled off. And it's still at the very beginning of that process, so it's possible that it could redeem itself. But yeah, I think on the whole, I'm still liking the show. I guess is my only takeaway.
Yeah, me too. I'd once again make that clear. I'd still like it very much so. Before we move on, I have one more question. This can be pretty quick. Well, how do you think the reaction would have changed if they wouldn't have done any of the flashback at all? Like the character shows up, does their thing, and then just dead. Because that's kind of what they did to some other characters so far, and I'm wondering what the reaction would have been. Because then, yeah, you don't get the cheap attempt at emotional like development and connection, but you also just like snap kill a very popular person.
Yeah, I feel like it would be more controversial. That would be my expectation, but
Yeah,
I don't know. It's all the reactions I've been seeing to this series have been like, I don't know, kind of wild because it seems like just this these extremes on both sides of the spectrum where half the fan base is saying that this is the greatest arc in all of shonen history, and then the other half is like, this is the worst ever. How could you hype this up? And probably a big part of it is how much it was hyped up.
that's
But just
super
like
true.
such extremes on both sides. And I'm like, really? It seems like, pretty solid. I can't imagine the manga was that mind blowing because most of what I like about it is in the adaptation. But like, I also don't see why people are like losing their mind over this. This is at worst like, mid to high tier shonen antics. So yeah, I can't predict how people would react.
Yeah,
Probably
my
extreme
best
for
guess
some
there
reason.
would be like people weren't prepared for main characters to die, and some of them do die unceremoniously.
Yeah.
So, which I think is in some ways a strong point. And if they would have killed the character that they killed at the end of the last episode, I think out of once I got past the shock of it, like the arty movie person in me would have been like, that was a brave choice.
Right.
And would have appreciated them to like having the chutzpah to just do that, and it would have. Yeah, I I do agree as a whole though. I think it would have been the more controversial choice, but I think I would have actually liked it more because I'm like, they really just pulled the rug out from me in a way that's entirely unexpected in that fashion. So,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
very much not what you expect from your shonen hits. So it
Mhm.
would be brave, but also, fans are fucking crazy about their characters.
Potentially
So
suicide.
yeah, exactly. So probably not the best in terms of making audience and editorial happy, and potentially I don't know, making people kill themselves. So probably safer just to. It's a problem. It's a problem when fans are that crazy.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
you've got to be weirdly careful about stuff.
yeah,
So, all right, cool. How about we shift stuff in a little more of a lighthearted direction? I wanted to see if you had any opinions. I know that we've talked about a lot of these shows with some fairly in depth, but how the Spy Family season is coming along, especially now that we finally got our Your Time.
yeah. I mean, I want to know what you feel about that because
Oh,
I
it's
knew
been
this was
great. I've
coming.
been
Yeah,
I've been loving it.
yeah, yeah.
Like I'm all about uh watching Your do her thing. Uh, the only, and it's not even immersion breaking. My wife said the same thing. Is the only thing I complain about the whole time was when they're going through the ship and they had wigs. Yor isn't wearing a wig, and I'm like, if anyone, she should be wearing like the most game changing wig because she's the one that does all the violence.
Yeah.
But no, I've been really enjoying it. Like just getting to see her kind of do her thing and get some character development where she starts truly questioning why she is working as an assassin, and does the idea of doing this to protect other people commingle with the fact that she's ruthlessly killing a lot of other people at the same time, and like, is she doing it for her brother? Some fun little flashes more at the idea of she is treating her fake family as a real family and growing actual emotional connections to them. And I think that sometimes, especially how I think it was the last episode went, where that's where she started and it wasn't her brother, and almost like there is some conflicting feelings there because they're, she and, Anya and, I don't know why I always forget his name, so I'm just going to go Mr. Forger. Lloyd, there it is. Lloyd or Twilight, I guess. That's his agent name, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Agent Twilight, yeah. I thought it was very interesting that she thought of those things first and not her brother, so it shows that, like, they are starting to form, at least in yours perspective, like actual emotional bonds, even though she's using them and is unaware that this exact same thing is happening on Lloyd's side, even though he's still very much so, I think, in using them mode, and has occasional flashes of actual caring for them. But I think the boat thing has shown that I think Yor is more emotionally invested in this, which has been fun to see. I also dig that old dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just picking people off and doing all sorts of shit. He is cool. Give me more old, like, shonen lead characters that aren't just old masters that sacrifice themselves for the good of the rest of the people in a penultimate arc fight or something. Give me, like, an old guy that just beats ass all the time, and I think I'd also be happy about it. But yeah, I've been liking this little arc quite a lot once it started going. But yeah, it's good. I'm good with more of it, and I also chuckled a lot at Anya dunking on Lloyd all the time for trying to be a cool vacation dad, and then he just misses the mark entirely. So, yeah, I know now, and I think I've just come to grips with the fact that the story is what it is, and it'll probably the plot will never actually move anywhere. And I think we talked about a little bit on this podcast about that. And I had a problem with it when we first talked about it and in things, but I believe I have come to grips with that idea and have now accepted it. So I'm having a fun time. What did you think?
Yeah, so, it's definitely the Yor story that we've been waiting for. Definitely needed to happen. And yeah, the last episode was really great, both for action and for character development. And addressing the question that has kind of been inevitable, which is, we have these fun, lovable shonen leads, but also one of them murders people constantly for a job and is not changing, and that's happening a bunch right now. So we should probably address what that means to her and how she rationalizes it to herself and why she does it. So having
how she compartmentalizes it.
Yeah, exactly. So having that perspective, really explicitly laid out, I think was a long time coming and definitely needed to be addressed in this arc because it's definitely the most we've seen Yor at work. So that was good, and yeah, certainly the theme from the beginning of the series, which I think we all knew was always going to be the case, as generally is in these kind of stories, is that yeah, of course they're going to gradually realize that this fake family that they're using for their purposes is really, becoming their real family, and they care for them as much as they would any real family member. And that's the one little bit of status quo shifting that we get, or at least that the characters slowly start to realize more and more. It's probably always been the case. So, every time we get something like that, it's certainly not surprising, but it's definitely important to acknowledge every now and then, instead of just keeping up the facade that this is all just for the mission and these people mean nothing to me, because that was really never true. So, yeah, your standard stuff, but it's definitely good to have an arc where, one, Yor gets to take the spotlight, and two, it feels like things are actually happening. So, yeah, I was looking forward to it, and I was definitely like, it was always on my mind when people were like, "Man, when we get more Yor?" Like, just wait, it'll happen. So good to have it.
I like how Yor believes that she tricked Anya into thinking she was a carnival performer. Okay.
And I like how Anya is kind of, the one who's like, all right, I gotta make sure my parents still believe in Santa Claus. Like, she's the
Yeah, pretty
one
much.
with the perspective that, she knows everything that they're thinking all the time, and she has this incentive to make sure that none of the secrets get out. So she's the one who always kind of finds these way to trick her parents, who are, master spies and assassins, who should have a lot more intuition than this, into, not revealing anything and not realizing that she knows anything. So yeah, that's a fun little bit of sidebar, because you always got to have a little bit of Anya fun on the side.
Yeah, I like the gags where she sometimes forgets who they are as well. Like when she sent Lloyd into the dressing room to put on cool dad clothes, and she forgets that he can change like at 1,000,000 miles
Yeah.
per hour. Because she's like, "Oh yeah, that's right. He's a spy and a master of disguise. He's probably changing into every single shirt in like a minute." Uh, I thought that was pretty hysterical.
And just the general gag of like, Anya is the one with all the puzzle pieces, so she's the one who can kind of manipulate these situations in her favor, but she's also like 4, so she always tries to, plan out these master plots, and then she's just a dumb little kid, so she gets super excited and into it and forgets whatever she was actually planning in the first place. It's always
Yeah,
fun.
well, also having to balance the fact that she knows she's 4, so she has to pretend like she doesn't know and then sound
Yeah.
like conspicuously 4 years old
Yeah, exactly.
at the same time. So yeah, I've definitely come around to it. I know I was a little bit down at the beginning of the season since we weren't getting a lot of yours still, and it felt like we were just kind of spinning our tires in the mud for stuff. So it's good that we got what we have at this point. So very
Yeah,
much enjoying it, and I think the action was animated in a way that was complementary to your skills. I don't think it's the most fantastic animation in the world, but it gives credence to her skill and strength and everything in a way that's good. Like they didn't shortchange that where it mattered, so that I get some visceral feelings from those fights. Obviously, yeah, not in the same way of like how Jujutsu Kaisen does their, fighting animation, but definitely serviceable enough that it's exciting and it gives you some sense of danger, especially when you're fighting kind of like the big baddie of sorts. Love when she bounced that dude off the deck and into the water, though. Like she just Pele'd him into the ocean.
Yeah, I think like my feelings on the Spy Family anime aren't too different from where they were a month ago. And again, I knew what we were getting in this arc anyway. Um, but I still think it's generally a series that starts off really great because it's a novel concept and they have a lot of fun with it. And then as it goes on, it needs to kind of justify dragging itself out forever without really changing anything. It becomes kind of repetitive and not always that interesting. And I think that's still true. Uh, I think it's just nice to have a little bit of variety because, especially coming from the manga, this is a pretty one-to-one adaptation. It's not like some of these like really ambitious shonen productions. It's very, solid all around. Uh, but the things that we can look forward to in the adaptation are like, the comedic timing of the direction, basically Anya's voice actor delivering those lines, and when we get action sequences and the action direction and animation around that. Um, so since we've gotten a lot of the slice of life stuff and Anya's school antics, it's nice to mix it up a little bit and see some of the other skills of the directors at work and the studios as well. When we get these kind of action moments, even though it's not like the most mind-blowing. It's definitely still above par.
Yeah. And I think it reinvests you in Yor's character too a little bit. It refreshes your interest in Yor, which can refresh your interest sort of in the series, and that's what happened to me at least. Like, she's supposed to be this big assassin, and they don't show her doing anything except kind of failing at her job once, so she fades into the background, and then they bring out the cruise ship arc, and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, she is an insanely dangerous person. And it's sort of like, refreshes your interest and reinvests yourself into her character, because she does have that depth, and she's not just an assassin, like an assassin in the same way that Inspector Gadget is a police officer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I totally agree, because like that's something, going back to, the whole lovable, cute shonen protagonist thing, that they could have just kept sweeping under the rug, where you have this premise that, in theory, this character kills people, but we're never really going to show that, because that would kind of tarnish her public image. You want to see her as, perfect, pure, cute little Yor. So getting back into the thick of it and seeing her just fucking killing dudes left and right, I think is, kind of important to the integrity of what her character was established to be. And then, that opens up the opportunity for her to have that moment of reflection, to kind of face the audience and be like, okay, so let's talk about why it's okay that I do this, or why I think it's okay that I do this. And you can have your own opinions on that. So it is definitely a good character development arc, if nothing else.
Yeah, it also does help Yor's side of things when, at least especially in this cruise ship arc, that when she's like, I'm killing bad guys to protect my country, you can make that argument, because a lot of these are drawn almost comically evil. Like, I don't know how Lloyd, I think it was brought up once or twice, but I think most people, if you laid out all of the patrons on that boat, you could pick out the assassins, because it's the people that don't look like people.
Yeah.
It's like dudes with huge shark mouths, and, people that, have 60 daggers lodged into, like, the sides of their rib cage so they could pull them out at a moment's notice. Like, I don't think we've really seen Yor do, except maybe like that first one, perhaps, killing of people that is morally gray.
Yeah.
In
and
that fashion.
She's able to rationalize it to herself, and whether you agree with her or not, that's up to your own interpretation. But I think it would be nice if the series kind of took the initiative to introduce that moral gray area, and make a character actually be a character, and put Yor in a situation where she's faced with killing that person, because that would be way more interesting than her just being like, well, these guys are just faceless mooks who are going to kill people, so this is my job. So having them as actual characters, and introducing that moral dilemma, I think would be the next step to, really making that an engaging discussion.
Yeah, because it definitely doesn't sound like she has any choice in any of these matters, so she could be killing these assassins as easily as her boss, and what is it called, the garden or something?
Yeah.
I can't remember what they were telling her, you have to kill this witness for a grand jury trial.
Right.
Like, or a whistleblower for, like, corporate, misdeeds and evil, because clearly the organization she works for doesn't give a shit where the money comes from.
Yeah.
It's just, we've, as an audience, and in Yor's, at least, what we see of her life, she's never really had to be put in that position. She just does the thing.
She's
so
Martin Blank.
I agree with you.
She's Martin Blank. Too cute to be killing all these people.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would take it up a notch a little bit to put her in that position, because then it will challenge her worldview in a way that could be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say...
They should have Yor say, I killed the president of Paraguay with a fork. That would be amazing.
Your has a role in international politics and in overthrowing governments.
I mean, that's kind of the whole show, right? It's like we've got this spy, infiltrating, the going across the border of East and West Germany and doing all this espionage. Not Germany, sorry,
Not
Germany.
Germany. It's
Not
Berlin.
Berlin. So, doing all this espionage
Afraid of pissing off, it's like at this point it's like you're gonna piss off the Russians.
But he he's following the orders of these shady clandestine organizations that tell him to do these illegal activities against the enemy, whoever the enemy may be. And you're same way, and he's just killing people under orders for some interested party that disagrees with some other party. And then her brother is on the opposite side from Lloyd, and somehow none of them ever seem like they're possibly doing the wrong thing. It seems like they're all somehow always just heroes saving the world. So, and it's a lighthearted gag manga at the end of the day, and that in conjunction with being a shonen anime where everyone has to be a hero for the most part, you're not likely to get a lot of that kind of really challenging material. But you can only do so much of that before you're like, aren't you like committing war crimes? Like, shouldn't there be some discussion about this is affecting other people and they also have their cute little spy family and their cute little 4-year-old, that maybe we should look at how you're destroying their lives? But I don't know if we'll ever really get that.
I would err on the side of no, but it would certainly be an interesting concept for them to pick up. It would just, I feel like that would fly in the face of the lightheartedness too much. That's kind of your core demographic.
Exactly.
So it's okay to flirt with those ideas for a little bit of flair, but then to do something that would take more of a dive like that in any meaningful way, I think would alienate a lot of the people who watch it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a little disingenuous to create a story around spies and assassins and basically never delve into the moral quandaries therein.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting moving forward because I don't read the manga, nor have I been ever spoiled for anything, which normally I'm not spoiled for stuff. I mean, I've been spoiled for JJK like fucking mad this season. So I'll be curious to see how we move forward with the evolution of them in their respective careers.
The good news is you can't really get spoiled for anything in this show. Nothing matters all that much.
That's true. Yeah, since we know the status quo generally stays about the same, the most you can get spoiled with is like, does the little gadget man get a girlfriend eventually or not?
Frankie Gadget.
Yeah, Frankie. Little Frankie. All right, cool. Let's see. Kestrel, is there anything you wanted to talk about? I mean, I've got 3 other shows and 2 we have in common. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Frierenday is the fucking best, so we'll definitely want to talk about that some.
For sure.
You've also watched Pluto since our last episode, right?
That I haven't finished it. I'm on the last episode.
Okay. So we could talk about, how you're feeling about that a little as well.
Sure.
Attack on Titan also ended. That was the thing that happened, but none of you guys watched that, so I guess I can hold off on talking about that too much.
Yeah, I need to, now that it's over, just watch it from start to finish, because that was my original plan. I think even when this first came back on the air and we talked about it after its hiatus, I was like, I'm just going to wait until it's over and then go, and now we finally got to that point, so I can do that. But yeah, Frierenday is the shit.
Yeah.
I'm still... Out of all the shows this season, it's definitely the one that I can honestly say, like, every week I've looked forward to watching it. There have been times for some of these others where I'm just like, well, I want to catch up. I don't feel like watching it today. Maybe tomorrow. Like, I haven't been as eager to see a new episode as I have with Frierenday because it just does so many things so well. I watched the new episode too before this, so in case we want to talk about it, but yeah, for it is an unfair comparison, but for most of the stuff that I criticize Jujutsu Kaisen on, Frierenday does like expertly. As in, like, I'm invested in each one of the characters, and you get moments strewn out amongst the show that allow you to organically develop those feelings. Like, even with Stark, you had when he was first introduced, then he fights the dragon, which gives you a little more background on what he's like and what Aizen's like, and then the episode with Stark's birthday, you get some background there, not only from flashbacks, but just from Stark talking about what his childhood was like, and then you get so much development from multiple avenues, which is something I really love, like flashbacks during an action scene, Stark talking about his family and how he was kind of the runt of the litter, and you get a couple flashbacks from that explanation, but then they eat the giant hamburger and he realizes something that even his own like brain locked away about his own life, almost as like a way to cover up his trauma from what happened to his family, and then he just eats a giant hamburger thing, and it does the classic food unlocking like core memories that you have. And so you get like it just gives you all these delicious little morsels about people that just feels like as you watch this show you're kind of growing and changing with them rather than it just being dumped on you right before they fucking die. So it has been an absolute treat watching it, and it looks very pretty, and it even has action. It has action now.
Yeah.
Like since we last talked about it, because I think when we talked about it last, we were still very much in sort of like a Iyashike type feel.
Well, it already had the dragon fight, which was like the most spectacular animation of the season.
Already. Yeah, but even then, I think that fight was like 20 seconds or so. Like it was part of one episode. We have like a mini arc that had several different fights that all of the characters had with like blood and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just checking all the boxes. So I'm obviously it is my favorite of this season, and it's probably gonna be my favorite of the year, but I know that we get so much anime and so many other things in my life that I can forget some stuff, so I'll have to look back to see what else I watch and almost revisit it, but it would be tough to have many things be above the show at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal in every way. It's one of those stories and productions that just seems like it was, created over the course of a lifetime and just like expertly crafted so that there were kind of no missing pieces. Obviously that's not the case, so it's impressive to see it just come together feeling like that. It's beautiful. I love the whole aesthetic, kind of slight painterly nature to it, kind of almost artificial grain that it has. It has like texture to it. It's not just all solid color. Doesn't look quite as artificial and computery. Beautiful hand drawn everything, incredible animation, very subtle, nuanced character interactions and movements and mannerisms. Really delicate direction. The Yashike moments just take the time to let everything breathe and really get a sense of how these characters feel when the world is at peace. Have so much kind of introspection and retrospect on their past and what that means to their present and their future, and just constantly dealing with the nature of regret and learning from the past, and while also not living in the past and wallowing in it too much, and using those lessons to move forward and appreciate and embrace what you have now and what you can do going forward. Um, just so many universal themes of humanity and all of these, you know, aspects of people that are layered into all of the characters in a way that, you know, feels very broad, but also the characters are given the time to really develop those aspects and feel like you're getting to know them and that they are consistently written and are growing and developing alongside the viewer. The flashbacks, you know, offering like it's funny we were talking about using flashbacks to get you invested in characters right before they're going to get killed off. This is constantly giving you emotional investment in characters who have been dead for 30 years, because it's just seeing them as they were through the eyes of, you know, the character who is still going on in the world and learning more about them and who they were as a person and all of the intricacies that made them up.
Yeah, it's an
yeah.
entirely different thing. It's
Yeah.
it's not a lens to view sudden trauma. It's a lens to appreciate people as they once were or as they continue to be in your memory.
Right. And what that means to you and how it affects you as a character, and to see those traits, you know, kind of manifest within your own personality and how you use those things to carry on to the next generation when you're in a position to do so. Yeah, it's all really great. And like you said, there's even arcs that are just like straight up battle. And even within that, you know, it's a lot more than just the fighting. It's really about, you know, the politics of the different races in this world and how they interact, and you know the potentially like problematic discussion of, you know, if we have another sentient race that is as intelligent as humans but doesn't have empathy built in as, you know, a piece of their kind of mind, uh how their mind is constructed, then what does that mean to humans and other human-like creatures who do have that sense of empathy? Are they all inherently evil? Is that an acceptable thing to say in that kind of scenario? So the kind of issues that it raises in that context is also very interesting, especially since it's all within the construct of like, you know, your classic fantasy party,
Yeah.
go defeat the demon lord RPG kind of, you know, you get one member of each class to join your party so that you have all the bases covered. You have a priest and they do the healing. If you get poisoned, you go to a church to purify yourself. Like it's all very 80s JRPG kind of Dragon Quest-y setup. So the fact that they can use that as a baseline, and I guess in a similar way to Pluto, right? And still just create so much nuance and mature themes to explore within that makes it even more impressive.
Yeah, the point you made that I think sort of crystallized maybe what I was saying in a better way is your ability to grow with the characters is in like you learn about them as they learn about each other, and you see such like little subtle things that show you how they truly feel about each other sometimes. Like Fern and Stark's relationship is one that the internet loves, obviously. But it's really interesting to see the fact that like when they talk to each other, when Fern talks to Stark, for the most part it's very like curt, but then she'll do things like put her jacket over him when he's cold and like be familial in that way and, you know, care for him and be friendly, but then we'll turn around and just call him a perv for some reason. Like the next one, and kind of misconstrue his intentions on stuff. And it makes it feel like you kind of are having a journey with them and not seeing it played out at you. It's like playing out with you there as another member of the party almost sometimes, which is a very rare thing to have in any media, let alone like anime. to be able to emotionally connect at that level, where it's not just like, oh, that's the funny character, and then that's the one that cares for everybody as a mother and is very gentle. Like, everybody has an emotional depth to them that is believable. Fern is kind of introverted to an extent, but cares for other people and is willing to also, fight and do battle when that time comes and is needed, and understands a little bit of, the consequences of that and what that means, like when they're fighting the demons, and the one big one calls her like an abomination, and she's like, Freerun would know that more than anybody. So, like, there's a recognition of that fact that what they're doing is, can be controversial at times, especially in the world of magic and mages and such. I've just really loved getting to know all of them and their little fun moments as well as like the more serious moments.
And that's another thing.
I'm interested to see how the priest will add to that dynamic, because he is in a lot of ways more corrupt than Heiter was, because he smokes and drinks and just does all sorts of stuff. So that'll be a fun addition to the party.
Yeah, definitely interesting to see that dynamic shake up. And I'm glad I watched that episode during lunch as well. It is definitely one of those shows that, like, I don't want to be an episode behind for any second longer than I have to be. So we're going to talk about the show. I definitely want to be caught up, and they changed the party in this episode, so that's pretty significant.
Especially because Frierenday has already said, "I don't like you."
Yeah.
So
it'll be fun.
It'll be fun to see how that plays out, because she's at least started on a neutral frame with the others, but she's just flat out like, "Nah, I don't like you, but you need to come with us for, probably in her opinion, more objective reasoning in terms of that. Like, well, you can heal, and apparently you're a super genius healer, so that'll be good to have, but I think you're a fucking jerk."
Yeah, definitely. Fern and Stark are like a great couple of sibling-like kids. They feel very authentic in how they relate to each other, like you were saying.
Yeah, he's older than her, right? I think he's
so.
Because he had his 18th birthday, and the last time we got an age for Fern, she was 16. So I don't think they're 3 years apart, because I think there was some traveling before they got to Stark that may have taken like a year. It's just funny because she's clearly like the elderly sibling in their particular relationship in a lot of the more conventional ways, even though he is older.
Which, I mean, I think that's fairly common with, like, girls of that age being a lot more mature than guys, especially when, I don't know, you're in a society where the guy is been heralded as like the hero warrior. It's like Himmel. Himmel never grew up. Like, you get to just kind of be a man-child all the time if you're in that position.
Spending 18 hours getting one statue made.
But
I'll look up their ages in the manga for you after the show's over. I'll post our Discord if you're curious.
Yeah, I would be interested to see, because obviously, like, Frierenday is like 900 years old, so
over
they spell out the year, how time goes by on the manga pretty clearly. So
the idea that she thought she could seduce Sign in any way was just fucking ridiculous.
But it works on everyone else.
Yeah, apparently so. But I liked his reaction. Like, could someone please pick up this child? Like, what a fucking dunk on her. That's what, like, solidified him for me at that point as being a good addition to the party, because there were some parts of the episode where I was like, yeah, he'll add some stuff, but I don't know how much different he'll be in a way that's like super meaningful, other than just being another opinion that they kind of can mold into the group. But then when he dunked on Frierenday, because the other two kind of treat her as a child at times, but then also as a parent, because she can kind of do both roles. But he's just like, nah, this little kid, I'm not here for this little 1,000-year-old kid.
Yeah, especially like Fern, she started traveling with Frieren from a very young age. Um, and, both her and Stark are fairly young, so she definitely has that kind of parent-like relationship with them. And, we get their kind of exasperation at some of her eccentricities from time to time, and that's always fun because they get to kind of like commiserate with each other.
World's worst morning person.
Yeah,
What was that?
when they have to praise her for waking up early once.
Yeah, exactly. I feel you, Frieren. I'm not a morning person. But yeah, they definitely have a similar dynamic, and it's kind of occasionally annoyed or exasperated love, but acceptance of all that Frieren is, and they never really cause problems for her at this point. So to have someone thrown into the mix that's probably going to be like a wild card will definitely be a good addition to that dynamic to shake it up a bit.
Yeah, someone that sees Frieren as more of a nuisance sometimes.
Yeah, and
will be
certainly
interesting.
has only known them as an adult, so he doesn't have any sort of like feelings of her in any sort of leadership role or adult role or anything like that. So he's not going to give her the deference or reverence that the other two do.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be a fun dynamic.
And yeah, just the fact that the show isn't above being funny, like it's able to really let the comedic moments shine, and it does it very effectively. And I think just one of the best strengths of the entire team working on it is just how well they're able to balance all of the different tones and paces that it has to go at. Because it is only so effective because it allows itself to be Iyashike and allows itself to be high stakes action and allows itself to be hilarious comedy, and balancing all of those and juxtaposing between them could be insane tonal whiplash if it wasn't executed really expertly. So the fact that it feels so natural and all of those aspects complement each other rather than feeling jarring in any way is a real testament to its strength.
Yeah, I keep bringing up this episode in particular, but I think a perfect example of what you're talking about is, Stark's birthday episode, because you go from him talking to Fern when she's like, "We're gonna get you a gift," and he forgets it's his birthday, and he tells this like pretty sad story about his life and everything. So you get a more serious emotional moment, and then Fern goes, "Well, we're gonna go get you a gift. Let's go get you a gift." And then you get a comedic moment immediately afterwards because he points at the gold bracelet and she just goes, "No, that's expensive." So you get a little joke right there, and then it cuts to kind of a tender moment where it shows them both standing in front of the cabin and he's wearing the bracelet already that she bought, which to me was like he clearly cared for the bracelet and her gift, because if he didn't really care or want it, he probably would have been like, "Yeah, we'll get that bracelet, whatever," and then he just would put it like in a bag or something, but he was already wearing it right there, so that was kind of a little subtle tender moment that they showed. Like, they got a bracelet, he put it on, and he's like wearing it sort of not with pride or whatever, but he put it on and obviously will cherish it in some way, shape, or form, not just, "Oh, this is a little bracelet, I'm gonna put it in my knapsack," or whatever. So it's like three distinct emotions or so, like back to back to back, done in a really, free-flowing manner that felt natural.
Right. Yeah, it's all very sincere and very subtle and always respects the audience. It never like talks down to the audience. It's very nuanced in everything that it layers in there and rewards you for, paying attention. So yeah.
Indeed. So, is this do we know how many episodes it's going to be, or is it just carrying straight through until
Yep.
it's done, which I'm gonna guess is, at least for now, like the 24 episodes, 26. That may not be the done, but that's the done for now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the manga's still going, so I don't think we're anywhere near, being able to get to any sort of ending. But yeah, it's going to be 28 episodes since we got the 4 to start it off. We get a few extras.
Oh, cool. I will take as many as I can get.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're only up to volume 4, maybe? Not even that, I don't think.
Yeah, that's maybe even farther than I would have expected, because it's coming out in Japan in a few weeks.
Yeah, volume 11. I think we're up to something
so I mean, if they are up to like volume 4, then we're less than halfway through the adaptation. It could get most of the way through the manga that's out so far. That's true.
Cool. Well, I look forward to seeing how it all plays out, especially with the addition of a new party member.
Looks like
it's gonna be one of those situations where the show ends and then there's gonna be like a 3-year gap before they can adapt any more of it.
Probably, and that's going to be really sad, and I'm totally cool with it because it really feels like they're taking their time with this production, and they're making it the best that it can be. And if that takes a few years of waiting in addition to needing more material to adapt, then absolutely no problem at all. But yeah, looking at
I would be bummed, but if it meant getting a product as good as this at the end, it's completely fine.
Yeah. Looking at the chapter titles in the volumes, it looks like we just finished volume 3 with this episode. So that was episode 13?
Right.
So yeah, it looks like we'll be about halfway through the material from the manga by the end of this season.
Cool.
So in theory, we could have another 28 episodes immediately after, but that's not how production works. Please don't try that.
Do not kill yourselves for this show, please.
Alrighty. I think the last show that we're both watching is the Apothecary Diaries, which I'm all caught up, but I just started a little bit late, so I've been doing at least my equivalent of binge watching over the past few days. And I've also been very much enjoying this from a mystery solving point of view. And I actually remember what you said last episode, Kestrel, and I wanted to agree with you in that I do like how this show handles like brothels and sex in a manner that is like, yeah, people do this.
Right.
Like, it acknowledges it and talks about it and things that sometimes is funny, but other times is, just like, this is what life is like. And people, went to, brothels and did all sorts of crazy junk. So
people banging.
Yeah, they be banging. They be bumping uglies. So it adds a nice feeling of sort of immersion in the world, that they don't shy away from topics that clearly have precedence to the storyline. Like, it would make it harder to believe about all these like concubines and stuff, and I can't remember the name of the house that Mao Mao worked at, but like, if they never broached the topic of what concubines and brothel workers and stuff do, it would make the show feel a little weird.
You mean the entertainment district?
Yeah, sure.
The red light.
That place that is certainly not the red light district?
No, not at all. It is purely for wholesome entertainment. The fact that there are scantily clad people everywhere is purely coincidental.
Like, obviously, Demon Slayer was very euphemistic about that, but One Piece is definitely the worst, because, like, the Wano arc went on for hundreds and hundreds of chapters and episodes, and a lot of it was based around, like, the pleasure district and the, top concubine, but never in a million years would they ever acknowledge the fact that sex exists. So it's very bizarre.
I'm also loving how everybody is a little fucking freaky in this show.
Yep.
Like everyone's got a little something something going on. It's Mao Mao like weirdly pleasured by poisoning herself and the idea of what that would do to her body, and then uh Jinshi getting off on Mao Mao just treating him like a bug.
Yep. I love
He is
it.
very much step on me, mama.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's totally step on me mommy, and I'm here for it because I think it's incredibly funny whenever that happens, because he, of his status within the Emperor's palace and everything, and just this girl giving him a mean look is enough for him to like be weak in the knees,
There's so
much to
many
the
like
chagrin of his assistant.
there's so many layers to that make it so funny because like he's a eunuch, right? So
Hmm.
he's not bumping uglies. His uglies are gone. But he's gorgeous, so all the women adore him, and he has no interest in any of them. And the one woman that he does have interest in is completely repulsed by him. But that
Yep.
repulsion is what totally gets him off, and
Yep.
then that's conflicting to her because then she wants nothing to do with him, but that fact alone is what makes him even more interested in her and is just feeding into what he's enjoying so much. So it's a total lose-lose for her. And yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, I think it's one of my favorite dynamics of the show. Uh, Emily even predicted one of the lines when he had first interacted with her, and I think it was when he like put his face really close to hers to say something. It was, I think it may have even been like just the second episode. And once the scene ended and he kind of like stepped away and tried to act all suave and she looked disgusted, Emily went, "Ew, gross." And then as Mao Mao's walking away, the line says, "Ew, gross." And we laughed because yeah, it's normally those creepy charms that work on so many people, but it just makes Mao Mao shudder. Uh, it's a fantastic dynamic. And I think I mentioned it before, but I like how we're solving kind of the murder mysteries before the murders happen
Mhm.
in a way, which is a little refreshing because a lot of mystery stuff you get sometimes is like trying to find the who done it when the done it has already occurred. So her position as like a food taster and sort of half doctor in the palace gives her more mystery solving in the way of like Minority Report than by Sherlock Holmes.
The crazy thing is, it's like she can solve these mysteries, and then she can't say a damn thing about what she thinks to anybody, because if anybody even assumes or has an inkling that the taster girl can figure out who's the culprit might be, she's like a fucking big target on her back. So she's like, she has to keep reminding herself, she's like, don't get involved, this is not your problem, do not get involved. And even her dad in like the latest episode was like, let it go, stop jumping to conclusions, just let it go. And they're paying us hush money,
Yeah.
and we can't follow through on whatever the hell this was because it's not our business and it's just going to put targets on our backs. And it's like, ugh.
Yeah, hush money, but more importantly, the good snacks. They broke out the good snacks and the good china.
It is a very interesting kind of premise there where it is essentially a detective mystery where the detective is heavily incentivized to not solve the crime and not get involved, not get invested. And she tries not to care that much, but of course, even though she is very like kind of brash and flippant and not a kind of bleeding heart hero, she does of course care. So there's that conflict to it. But yeah, it's a setup that you don't see that often.
Yeah, I think what they described it as, she has some sense of justice.
Yeah, right.
So like some vague sense of justice. Uh, I like how when she does get involved, though, she tends to get involved pretty heavy. Like she beat the shit out of that one lady in waiting with the powder, which was an intense scene to watch.
That was
Like
so dope.
giving her that power slap and then grabbing her by her hair and like dragging her over to the drawer and all sorts of stuff. I'm like, man, Mama's just going hardcore.
I know it's so funny because first it's the slap and you're like, oh, and then she grabs by the hair, drags across the. It's like, oh shit, we just turned into Jerry Springer over here.
Yeah, really. So yeah, it's when she does get involved though, she gets involved like intensely, which is cool too. Like her flippance kind of stops at that point.
Yeah.
Oh my God, when she threatened one of the ladies in waiting who was like trying to bully her, and she cabadonned her against the wall and was like, "I'm gonna hurt you so worse. No one's gonna you're not gonna be able to tell anybody about it." And like she was, and Mama was like, "Well, it's just a little bit of courtesan humor, whatever, like walking away." It's like, girl, you just threatened to like realize what you just threatened to do to this poor woman, and she's like so flippant about it. It's like,
Them's be the streets talking.
Yeah, it's interesting because she's like a very modern, fleshed out woman in this world of kind of flat stereotypes. They're all like kind of the character archetypes that you would expect from a period drama where you have, limited material to reference for how things might have played out, and obviously people were undereducated, the commoners that she's dealing with, and they're just kind of these expectations of the roles that people serve, and to not step outside of those bounds. And so she's just kind of like this wrecking ball going through that world of just being a very, I don't know, kind of 21st century kind of liberated woman, who knows everything and has like complete agency and self-actualization, and how that kind of conflicts with the world around her and all of these other characters who fit into their perfect little molds. And so she's able to step back when she needs to, but obviously when things come up that any reasonable person you would think would be like, this is not acceptable at all, I need to take action, she can't quite hold herself back. And that's kind of where we get into the story of it, because she starts off at the rear palace being like, I'm just going to keep my head down and not let anyone on that I'm actually really smart and capable.
Yeah,
and
then I'm literate.
Yeah, right. And then very quickly she just can't help but get herself into all these situations and make herself more and more known and become kind of the go-to for these medical mysteries.
Yeah, if
so,
it hadn't been for Jinshi, she would have been able to fly under the radar. But he recognized the fact that it was like, oh, you can write. You wrote the note.
That was certainly the impetus and the catalyst for everything that followed, but she really does keep, overstepping those bounds in ways that, again, like, any person with a solid sense of justice, at least from our modern perspective, would absolutely do. But in this context, where she is and who she is, I think she's going to get herself into these situations, even if she could, reset the slate every time and everyone could forget about what she can do and what she knows, because that's just kind of the person she is.
Yeah, I want to be Mama when I grow up.
That's a very, like, all those points are super solid. That it's clear now, but I didn't think about the fact that she's so developed, like mentally, emotionally, in a world of flat people, that makes her stand out even more. That's something I'll pay attention to, I think, more by in watching it, at least more actively paying attention to it, since I was probably passively aware of that. Obviously I was like, oh, she can read, she can do these other things, but then like her thought processes and logic and her idea of her own stature in the world is more evolved than others in that way. Like this stuff where it's like, I gotta put these freckles on so I'm not attacked, and other things like that, puts her hyper aware of the position that she's in.
She is very she's street smart and also book smart.
Yeah,
That's
she's
a scary, dangerous combination in this situation.
Right.
mhm.
Especially in a world and a role that really, really wants her to be neither of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she brings it up multiple times. She's like, my life is expendable.
Yeah.
Like, both as like just a normal servant worker girl, and then as a food taster. It's like she moves up, but she doesn't move up in a way that makes her life not forfeit. In a way,
Yeah, the only way her life is not forfeit is this: she gets the hell out of there. And even then, she like the stuff that happened in the most recent episode. If she had been home, she still would have been embroiled with that shit because she was home, and that girl came running up to their home. Oh my god, that girl! Holy shit!
The girl with like the psycho anime eyes.
Yeah, holy moly! It's like, you're 10. Chill the fuck out. What the hell? Fucking knife fight.
That's a street smarts in the making.
Yeah, that was nuts. I did not think that was going to escalate to like fight over knife.
Yes, this is straight up knife murder.
Yeah. It's like that escalated quickly.
But yeah, like, keep an eye out for any of the other ladies in waiting or concubines or prostitutes indicating any signs of critical thinking. I think you'll find that there's not much.
Yeah, not for the most part. Or if they do have any moments of that, it's only because like Mao Mao gave them the ability to do so for a brief few moments.
Right, exactly.
All right. Cool. Well, I don't know if either of you had anything more to say about apothecary stuff. Yeah, that's one I'm also thoroughly enjoying. This has been a good season overall, really. I feel like all the shows that I like, I like them all for different reasons. So this has actually turned into one of the better seasons for me over the past couple.
It's a very strong season.
Yeah, because even a show like Overtake, which looks like just kind of a bland-ish sports show, has, and I'll talk about it just for a minute, has really delved into like personal trauma and dealing with like loss of life and family members, and having your like hobbies or professions that you have a passion for kind of taken away from you by that very same passion, and how you handle that, like getting back on the horse if you ever do social media backlash, all sorts of stuff that you wouldn't think from a show about the most minor league formula car racing league you could possibly be in. But even that's been surprisingly good. There's a fun dynamic developing between the main driver character and the photographer character that's becoming like a father-son-esque relationship, since the driver character, his dad died racing, and he continues to race and sometimes deals with the trauma that brings, and the questions about its danger and things of that nature, and how that weighs against his passion for being in a car, and how it connects him to the memory of his dad by doing that. And then the camera guy has to deal with the fact that he was in a town taking pictures of a bunch of families and people, and then that town got hit by an earthquake, and the loss of life and trauma regarding that, and how it affects societies, and on a more granular sense, him and his life and his work relationships and personal relationships. And then occasionally there's a car race. It's actually, the car races are the weakest part of the whole show, because the cars are kind of crappy CGI.
Mm.
But it is a sports show in the same way it's been developing as, in the same way that like ping pong is a sports show.
Oh, okay.
Where it's like the sports are really just the vessel for which the characters can interact with each other on a regular basis. And then sometimes there is some character development based off of the emotional rigors of participating in that sport and how it can challenge you in its unique ways of competition. But most of the time, it's really just this is the way that the characters can interact in a regular basis that draws them together, so it doesn't feel unnatural. Like, oh, they're just all doing racing stuff. All right, they probably hang out a lot, and then it goes from there. But yeah, even that show's been good, and I did not really have any expectations for it outside of being a car racing shonen anime. But yeah, that covers the fifth like standard show outside of Pluto, which is its own thing entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it too much because I still have the last episode to go. And so much has happened. It's definitely been a heavy show that I've had to spend time processing it because of its various complications. It looks incredible and it's very well directed, and I'm personally a fan of stories that deal with like transhumanism and the rise of AI and what that means and what consciousness is and when is it deemed that you are a sentient being versus just a bunch of ones and zeros. It's one of the reasons why I love Star Trek and things, because it deals with that all of the time and those concepts, and I think it handles that very deftly, especially with stories like North Number 2, and what's the long-haired one?
Epsilon.
Yeah, Epsilon, and what Epsilon was designed for versus what Epsilon decides is right for. I'm just gonna go with him for the time being. And how that interacts with the public's idea, and if they think that that's genuine or if it's a ruse or things of that nature. It's really, it does a lot of things right, and it feels like a very like well directed, compact if complicated story. That I don't know. It feels like it is made with purpose. And I want that to be like a big compliment, obviously. Like everything is done with reason, every second that it doesn't feel like it wastes any of the time that it has to show you how its world plays out. But yeah, I'm very much so enjoying it. It has been hard to watch it just because every episode is an hour long, so it's a little bit harder to fit in than a 20-minute episode, and I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with when watching it. Is just making the time like to watch everything at once. I think it's one of the reasons why people didn't watch like Uku either, is because its first episode is an hour and a half long, and that can drive people away. But out of all those ones that do that, I think Pluto is most certainly the best and most worth your time.
Yeah, I mean, all American dramas are an hour long per episode.
Yeah, but this is a cartoon.
Oh, that's right. Can't take it as seriously.
Nope, you're not allowed. It's a cartoon for kids, Kestrel.
It's true.
It can't be an hour long unless it's a Disney movie or something. And Pluto doesn't have any fun songs.
But it has Pluto. Pluto's a Disney character.
Yeah, but it doesn't have any fun songs or a cheeky sidekick character.
I mean, you still have an episode left.
Oh my god, I just had a mental image of Pluto as done by Disney. Oh man.
I mean, it would look a lot closer to Astro Boy than Pluto does.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Good point, but still, it's like
Pluto as done by Illumination.
Yeah, that was a thing, right?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm very much so enjoying it. Yeah, it takes me longer than I think the other shows to digest, just because of all like the very high, lofty concepts that it is constantly addressing.
It's not that high and lofty, but
I mean, I
pretty
guess
spelled out.
I meant like as in it doesn't just go, man, what if a robot was really smart? Would that make it a person? Like it delves into a lot of other things that can generate good conversation. So I guess I don't know, high concept maybe. It tries to give it more of, it gives you more to digest than just like Astro Boy is cute and seems to have feelings, so does that make him a person? You decide.
Yeah, no, Urasawa's storytelling is definitely, you know, very much about delving into the complexities of the human condition, and when he introduces science fiction elements into that, and like I was mentioning earlier, gives himself kind of the limitations of an existing IP to play in that world. It's definitely very fascinating with kind of what he comes up with and the thought-provoking material that he initiates.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts has been when is obviously you see a lot of the story through the eyes of Gesicht and everything because he's the one investigating it, but as it plays out of the anti-robot KKK
Yeah,
and how that whole thing starts.
definitely not the KKK. There's a lot
Yeah,
of definitely not these real life things in Pluto.
yeah, exactly. Don't be confused. This is not the KKK. I know you see robes and stuff and all that.
Not
It
the
is not the
KKK. And that's
KKK.
not Iraq.
Definitely
Yeah,
not
it's
Iraq.
not Iraq. Yep.
Definitely not Saddam Hussein. Definitely not George W. Bush.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know where
Not
you're
even
getting
close.
any of this from.
Yeah.
Oh, what's
So,
their America stand-in?
Gracia, the United States of
Gracia.
Gracia.
Yeah.
Galatia.
Like, where the fuck did that name even come from?
Apparently, it's like a historical name for like a geographical region in like the Balkans or something.
Weird.
Yeah, so it's like a Greek thing, I guess. But yep, United States of Thracia is definitely not the United States of America, and
No.
Persia is definitely not Iraq, and
No.
robots of mass destruction not even similar to weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, if I could critique it for anything, I was like the robots of mass destruction is a little too on the nose for me personally. But
It is up the nose.
yeah, it is finger up the nose and touching your brain at that point. Uh
Wait.
yeah, I laughed at that and I felt like I wasn't supposed to.
I mean, like, the shots of, like, not Saddam and all that are just, like, straight out of, contemporary news at the time he was writing this. Like, he didn't even try. Like, he traced photos of that statue.
He did it in the same way that Law and Order SVU creates their episodes.
Is that
Where
what
they're just yeah, they basically just take whatever was in the news 2 or 3 weeks ago and then make the exact same story and just change some of the stuff so it's not real properties. They did an episode about the whole ethics in games journalism stuff and they
God.
did it 2 weeks after it happened and just changed the names of the people in the video game companies, but you knew exactly what it was. And they do that all of the time.
I just want to reiterate, in case anyone has any thoughts to the contrary, this is a work of fiction. Any similarities to real life people or events is entirely coincidental.
Yeah.
Oh my
That's
god,
a
I
very
forgot.
good point.
I forgot Apothecary Diaries opens with that at the beginning of every episode. They're really scared of pissing off China, I guess.
Right.
That's right, it does do that, doesn't it?
Yeah. And like that's kind of like a standard fine print thing for a lot of things to put in somewhere, but to have it on screen at the beginning of every episode is unusual. Now, when you talked about Illumination, you that was based on the actual thing, right? That wasn't just you coming up with a crazy idea.
No, because they made an Astro Boy, didn't they? Or
Uh,
something like that.
did they make the Astro Boy? Because I know they were supposed. No, they didn't. I don't think so. Hold on. Did they even exist yet? Astro Boy movie, 2009. They might have existed. It was Imagi Animation Studios.
Oh yeah, I had no idea who that was. No, I
Uh,
didn't. If Illumination actually did something, it is
yeah,
news to me, and I was just pulling that. Oh, yep, I just see it now. Illumination Entertainment picks up Pluto.
yeah.
6
13
years
years
ago.
ago. 13 years ago is when they officially announced that they were going to adapt Pluto, and I don't think there's been anything since then. So probably not going to happen.
Yeah,
But
they're a little
that is
late.
funny. Yeah,
Hybrid live action and CG animation film.
yeah.
Woof. Yeah, no, I had no idea that was a thing. I was just pulling another prominent Western animation studio out of my ass.
Wow.
Boy, I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah, it's a strange fit because this is a very adult take on Astro Boy, and Illumination is not really known for being very adult in any of their works.
Hell, you could get away with, almost never even knowing that this was an Astro Boy thing if you weren't aware of it because they just call him Adam the whole time.
Yeah,
And,
right. I mean,
and
in Japan, obviously, everyone
yeah,
knows, but
for sure.
yeah,
But over
in
here,
America,
it's
right.
Astro Boy.
Right, they renamed all the characters. They named Ochanomizu like Dr. Elefun. And Dr. Tenma was like, "Oh, I looked this up." It was like, so of course, Adam is based on Tenma's son, right? So
Yep.
for the 1963 dub, they made the basis of Astro Boy like Aster Boynton the second, and so
Oof.
Dr. Tenma is Dr. Aster Boynton the first.
Christ.
Lord.
That's terrible. That's
But
terrible
yeah,
under any measurement.
And Udon was, of course, Astro Girl.
Yeah, of course. Always. So,
but yeah, from a Western perspective, it's funny. I was just talking to my teammate today, and I forget what we were talking about. I brought it up because of the definitely not Iraq War subplot, but I started talking to him about it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we kept seeing that on Netflix, and we were like, man, these kind of look like Hero Boy characters or something." Like, oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, that's a keen eye you got there.
Yeah.
I did like that they preserved the schnoz on some of the characters, and everyone knows I'm a big fan of that. So
Yeah, I mean,
people got noses in this.
the thing is with Urasawa in general, like, it's not like he was assigned this role or anything. Tezuka was always his biggest influence by far. I mean, shit, the main character of Monster is named Dr. Tenma. And, obviously his art style is very, very different from Tezuka. But he does, he was influenced by some of those Tezuka-isms to the point that, yeah, throughout all of his works, you get some of those characters with, the very big, round Tezuka noses. And that was definitely straight from him, kind of some of the curly hairs and those little traits that work their way into his aesthetic. So
some people that are kind of weirdly marshmallowy.
Yeah. So it makes sense that, picking up this, it was kind of a natural fit. On one hand, it looks drastically different, much more detailed. But on the other hand, he has already been doing kind of Tezuka characters in a certain way throughout his career.
Yeah, I look forward to. I think I'm going to try and finish it this weekend. Hopefully tomorrow. I could probably do it tomorrow. Just I've been fucking busy all week, so it's just a challenge to be caught up on the 5 shows that I'm watching right now at different times, when I can sneak in 20 minutes here or there. So I look forward to seeing how everything wraps up.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I don't want to I'm certainly not going to spoil anything, and I don't want to get your hopes down too
Do they
far.
get Saddam?
But
I mean, not Saddam.
Not Saddam. I will say that I think Urasawa's biggest weakness is ending his extremely complex interwoven stories in general and getting himself into kind of the corner of, oh, I have to make this the Astro Boy story again at the end of it, means that that's kind of compounded tenfold, because it hasn't really been Astro Boy storytelling at all throughout its run. So those factors do mean that the ending is maybe not quite as incredible as some of the storytelling leading up to that point. But yeah, still a great series all around.
For sure. This would be another one of those that I would hope Netflix would release on physical disc.
Ah.
Yeah. They do it sometimes.
I mean, Netflix never does. Occasionally, someone else can get the home video license.
Well, that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
it escapes the confines of Netflix.
Have we gotten any like actual Netflix original anime released on disc? Oh, Anime Limited is doing the Great Pretender, right? Although,
Yeah.
as we discussed, that's in a weird territory because Crunchyroll's doing the next season anyway.
Yeah, so it's a little bit funky there, but
I don't know about too many of those that are actually like Netflix productions for anime that someone else has been able to get on disc yet.
I don't know who owns it, but Netflix counts Castlevania as anime, and
It's true.
That got discs for every season.
Viz has been able to get a few of those out, and I mean, this is again a different case because it was an ongoing IP that Netflix only just picked up, but Viz is releasing, the JoJo Stone Ocean, which was a pure Netflix original. So yeah, there's a hope. And Viz released the Pluto manga, so it might be a good opportunity.
Yeah, so there we go. It's confirmed happening then.
Confirmed, yeah.
Yep.
Last minute addition to our news segment, Viz has decided that they are going to release Pluto on Blu-ray.
Yep. Sight unseen. They haven't even done the deal yet. They're just doing it. They're printing the discs right now.
Yeah. They got a fresh stack of BDRs this afternoon.
Yep, and they just pirated it from Netflix. They're gonna sell it.
Yep.
So, I think we're covered a good amount of time now. I am ready to jump into any recommendations if you have, because it's getting a little bit late here on the East Coast.
We should probably let Kate talk about anything she's watching if she's watching.
No, the only other thing I'm watching that we haven't talked about is Dr. Stone, and it's very much Dr. Stone, and the season has been absolute chaos because the plans that they made got totally effed up, and then it was just a bunch of people screaming and running around for like the last 4 episodes as plans were rapidly made and fell apart over and over and over again. People keep getting petrified and unpetrified. It's a little crazy. Like I said, lots of running around and screaming. That's about
Has it gone to the point where you can just willingly be turned to stone?
There is one thing that they're all playing hot potato with that turns people to stone, and Senku found enough of a source of stuff to turn people back from stone. So there's just been a lot of back and forth.
Interesting.
Like, bad guy turns people to stone. Senku turns people to stone. People get turned to stone again. It's a mess.
As of yesterday's episode, we've literally gotten to the point where characters are actively being turned into stone and unturned into stone at the same time.
Jesus Christ.
It's absolute chaos. I'm kind of here for the absolute chaos. I love how their plan was so freaking convoluted. They're like, we have to make a drone. So they went through all this. I'm like, this is the terrible plan. It does like you can shoot a drone out of the sky. This is a stupid plan. And then they were never even able to get that far. Like they're like, good, because that plan was not going to work. Like they were about to try to execute that plan. They're like, oh shit. It's one of those cases where like the bad guys are just as in tune with what the fuck's going on as the good guys, and like everyone keeps trying to one up each other. It's just a total mess. Great mess, but it's just a total mess. That's Dr. Stone for you.
Yep.
Very good.
Any recommendations? Anybody got any?
Yeah.
I have one.
Go for it.
Go see the new Godzilla movie. It is very, very good.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So,
yep.
Last night I finished all the extras on the Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.11 Ultra HD Blu-ray, which doesn't have HDR, by the way. It's kind of unfortunate.
Oh, cool, great.
Yeah. But anyway, that finishing up all of that kind of makes me want to check out what Anno has been up to outside of anime, and so I might just watch like his Shin trilogy now, since they're all like available for streaming. So maybe I will watch Shin Godzilla tonight, and then my friend's gonna be here tomorrow, and he's like the biggest Godzilla fan in the world. He's already seen the new movie multiple times, and he wants to watch it with all of us again tomorrow. So maybe I will end up seeing, because I don't think I've ever seen any Godzilla media, period. So
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This might be it.
Holy crap.
I mean, it's definitely a hit and miss, and the tone of any individual movie is up for grabs.
Right.
So this one in particular is way more of like Godzilla as metaphor for nuclear fallout. And
that's always when it's at the best, right?
Pretty much, yeah, because that's the new one. That is the original, which a lot of people consider, at this point, I've seen numerous people be like, the 1956 Godzilla original, 54, something like that, is now kind of 1A, 1B with this one, in that way. So you do get Godzilla destroying stuff. So there is that, like, that visceral experience is there. But the human story is actually pretty well written, and, you get emotionally invested in it because it deals with, like, survivor's guilt from war and nuclear fallout and governmental, like, abandonment at, through loss of conflict and, international politics and all sorts of stuff. It deals with a lot of things, and Godzilla is more of a representation of that, and not just like a giant lizard that's, literally stomping through a city. Not that those are bad. It's just the Venn diagram between those movies and, and Shin is more on the serious side too, because that deals with more of, how Japan and other governments deal with environmental disasters and criticizes them. So it's using Godzilla in a metaphorical fashion again to make him terrifying. And it's just, instead of war, it's more about, like, ecological type things. But the Venn diagram is pretty close to two separate circles when you go with, like, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, or Godzilla versus Kong, or any of that, versus the new movie. But yeah, very much so enjoyed it.
I've maybe been avoiding it because it's very dangerous when I dip my toes into those kind of massive sprawling franchises, because it's really hard for me to not just, like, dive full in and consume everything, and that's a big investment that I probably don't want to commit myself to.
There are many, many movies, and some of them are utter shit. So.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I actually made that friend. Well, I suggested it in the way that I do these things, and he obliged. But I asked him to rank every Godzilla movie, and he did in pretty quick order. And this is very near the top of his list, along with Shin and the 1954 original.
I would, that's a pretty common, like, top 3 or so, right. Just because they're deeper than just a giant monster, and that certainly helps. I would definitely recommend seeing it. And it's only like 2 hours or so it's not like an epic, like, the last couple of movies I've seen in theaters have been like Killers of the Flower Moon and Oppenheimer, so going to see a 2-hour movie was refreshing. That's my recommendation, because I think it comes out this month. I don't know what the showings are like. You probably have more out near you, Kestrel, but for the most part, and where I live, it was just like 2 or 3 days, and I think it might be over at this point. Until the mass release.
Well, I mean, the official US release is today.
Oh, is it? My poster said something. Maybe my poster said that. I just read the date wrong. I'd have to double check, but I felt like it was like 12/22 or something like that. But I could have just been reading over the font incorrectly. But
it is currently sitting at a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 98% audience score. So it does seem pretty well received.
Release date December 1st, 2023. Yep. So I think I may have just, maybe my brain melded the two from 2023 into the one, so I thought December 12th or something like that. Anyway, go see it. It is very good. CGI surprisingly good. though there's some CGI things that look kind of shitty, but it also had a $15 million budget, so it looks especially incredible for that amount of money.
Right. Okay.
It is the 37th Godzilla film, Kestrel, just so you know.
I know. Oh, I know. Like I said, I made this guy rank them all. I know exactly how many there are because he's seen all 37 multiple times.
Oof.
Yeah. Whew.
Okay, and that was your only recommendation?
For the most part, because everything else I recommend is stuff from this season, like obviously Frierenday and such. But yeah, Godzilla.
Yeah, I think I don't have much in the way of like recent anime disc for recommendation. I think I probably mentioned Jujutsu Kaisen season 1 is finally all out. Since Viz takes how many years has it been? 3 years to release anything. So you can finally get season 1 of that show. But yeah, definitely watch Rerun. In terms of manga, I will mention that the Berserk Deluxe editions are now complete through all of the work that Miura has done. Volume 14, they didn't have 3 volumes to put in it of his work, so they did his last 2 volumes plus the guidebook that came out a few years ago. So all the Berserk that has been released in English at this point is now in those nice, pretty deluxe editions. So highly recommend those. Also, I guess I'll recommend something that is not anime, but I mean, I guess it's kind of shocking that Netflix doesn't call it anime because it's a Netflix original adult animated series that takes place in Japan. And that is Blue Eye Samurai. It's really, really good. It's, I think, an American production within a French animation studio. It's a CG style that I don't immediately love, but I think they utilize it really, really well. It has incredible choreography, really great just character study. Yeah, phenomenal work. It's one of your standard, 8-hour long episodes for a Netflix series. So highly recommend everyone check that out.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about it as well. That was on my list of things to watch. Similar ideas about the CGI. I'm not super in love with it, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I think I find that a lot of like French animation, most of it 2D, but I tend to find that it's like not necessarily my aesthetic, but it's utilized really well and they do really creative things with it. So yeah, this one is definitely like from first glance, I was like, this is going to take some getting used to, but it is really just incredible visual spectacle when they get into it. And I'm disappointed in myself because they had the red carpet premiere at Animation as Film, and I could have covered it and saw the premiere and everything and talked to the creative team. But I was like, I don't know anything about this. It's not anything on my radar in any way. Doesn't look that great from like the screenshot that they had. And then, I ended up hearing all these great things about it and then watching it myself. I'm like, ooh, yeah, that was a really good show. Oh well, missed opportunity.
Kate, anything for you?
I have no recommendations to speak of. I am buried under a backlog, which I am desperately trying to claw my way out from underneath. There has been a million video games this year. Actually, well, today is a great day to jump back into Baldur's Gate 3. They finally released the update with the epilogues in place, so I think we're safe to say the game is kind of like done now, kind of. But it won't. I mean, they're gonna keep updating it for like 2 years or something, but because they always do. But hey, the epilogues are finally in, so I guess the game is as complete as it's going to get for the time being.
Yeah, that is one on a long list of games I also have to play, including the new Armored Core game.
How many games this year? God.
The Like a Dragon Gaiden spin-off thing I want to play. Currently playing Like a Dragon Ishin. There's just so many.
There's so many damn games. Like Steam World Build just came out, and I'm
Yeah, it
I'm
came out on
playing
Game
that.
Pass too, which is like I could start playing that immediately because I love the Steam World games, but I'm like I fucking can't.
Yeah, I put in about like an hour and a half earlier today, and I'm like, this is pretty good. This is a pretty good little city builder, strategy city builder.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, oh, there's too many fucking video games, man.
Yeah.
And it's not
I feel
slowing
you.
down. It's not slowing down at the beginning of next year.
No, it is. It is not, especially because we're getting shit like Metal Gear Solid Delta, and yeah, it is.
Oh,
The
ugh.
deluge will continue.
The next Final Fantasy VII chunk is
I
gonna be
know.
out. Oh,
I gotta finish my one Final Fantasy game before the next Final Fantasy game.
I don't even care about Final Fantasy, and I'm all about Dragon's Dogma 2 right now. I'm like, yes, give it to me, straight into my veins.
I have like 2 franchises I follow, and even them, I'm like a fraction of the way through both the Zelda game and the Final Fantasy game, and I have another Final Fantasy game coming.
No escape.
But I also put video games at the bottom of my priorities, so that's why.
Yeah. They're like close to the top of my priorities, which is why I never get anything else done. Anyway, this is a long podcast. We should wrap it up.
Sure. Kestrel, why don't you tell us where you can find the podcast as well as yourself?
Yeah, you can find the podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can subscribe, rate, and review. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Does Spotify Wrapped do podcasts? I don't know. We hope to be in your Spotify Wrapped. I don't know.
I think it does.
Okay.
I don't think it spends a whole lot of time on it, but I think it does, yeah.
Well, I hope to see Kestrel Swift right up there with Taylor Swift on your Spotify Wrapped. Yeah, you can get us on SoundCloud, Alexa, iHeartRadio, the Facebook platform if they still have podcasts on there, fandompost.com. Just listen to them in line there. Also follow us on social media. We are still on whatever broken ass hellscape Twitter is at this point. Also Facebook at Fandom Post Radio. We have not jumped to any other platforms. And you can get in contact with us via those or email fandompostradio@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at FullMetalKyoma, not posting anything ever.
Kate, how about you?
Available on the internet at Sonic Bug. I'm not really active anywhere except for on our web space, and I have a Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky. I check that occasionally. So there's that. Yeah, that's where you find me. I am reviewing Dr. Stone and Apothecary Diaries this season, and I've got a bunch of shows I've got to review. I mean, not shows, books I've got to review. Oh god, it's late. Yep.
Oh yeah, and I will have lots of Anime NYC coverage posted once it is all approved. Because we need approval from all the people I interviewed and their officials. So yeah, look forward to that.
Cool.
Very cool. And as usual, you can find me right here and nowhere else on the internet. So, exclusivity rights in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
as
I
always.
the AI replacement has been doing really well.
Yeah, it's like it's fooled basically everybody. Yeah, it's weird. But yep. As always, thank you everyone for listening. Feel free to reach out to us with thoughts, opinions, burns. It really don't matter. And we hope you listen, and we will talk to you again soon.
Yeah.
Good night.